So what's going on, guys? My name's Chopper, and guys, this video is going to absolutely blow your mind. Today we're going to be talking about the secrets that PUBG didn't want you to discover, and also some secrets that have still not been discovered yet. I know this all sounds kind of arbitrary and weird, but I promise you, if you stick with me through the end of the video, then you're going to come away with some information that nobody has ever seen or heard before. Now, I could have made this video a little bit earlier, but I wanted to make sure I had a couple days for everything to come out, so I have everything for this video as far as my research. So the things that we go over in this video are going to be absolutely wild. And since this stuff is so nuanced and is going to require further help from the community, I'd really appreciate if we could get 3,000 likes on this video in 24 hours. I'd really appreciate your guys' support on this one. And of course, if you are brand new around here, don't forget to subscribe so you can see the follow-up to this and also all the other PUBG content that we're going to be doing on this channel as well. But with all that being said and out of the way, guys, let's go ahead and get into this. Now, to get your mind in the framework proper for understanding this video, you're going to need to think back to the beginnings of PUBG and how this game was never really meant to be Easter egg centralized. You know what I mean? Like, there were the slide nods here and there, especially when the game came out, there wasn't too much to be going on, but either Easter eggs got patched in, they came in with newer maps, or especially with Erangel Remastered now that Easter eggs are like almost the main part, or at least a big draw to the map for a lot of players. Easter eggs started to become much more prevalent, especially with the release of Miramar, but the thing is, with the PUBG community, there are a certain subset of players that enjoy hunting these Easter eggs, but honestly, the majority of people don't really know about them. But you would think, at least, that the massive amount of players that play this game every day who are constantly on these maps, a lot of these Easter eggs would just have to be discovered just by, you know, brute force, basically. Just the amount of people that are here have to discover it at least at one point or another, but that may not actually be the case. So just a couple of days ago, Brian Corrigan, who is a studio director over at PUBG, was recently on a podcast that I was listening to. And during this podcast, Brian and the host were discussing everything from like PUBG's development. They were talking about video games that they like, and then also near the end of the podcast, they got onto the topic of Easter eggs. And one of the hosts had asked something along the lines of, like, I'm going to be paraphrasing this, but he asked something like, whose idea was it for the Vikendi loot cave? This was an Easter egg that really took the community by surprise in a good way, at least in my opinion. It was something that I guess unfortunately was data mined that it existed, but I think players would have found it regardless. And now, unfortunately, the main purpose of going to the loot cave in the first place is really no longer an option because they took the crates out of the caves, unfortunately. This really still came as an absolute shock to the community as like a secret openable area, the first time we've ever seen it in a map. And then, of course, with Erangel Remastered not too long ago, we ended up finding multiple secret areas in that as well. And there's even more to be found in the live version of Erangel Remastered, which we'll be covering a little bit later. But basically, this loot cave broke new grounds, if you ask me. It set the precedent for major Easter eggs to be found in upcoming maps, and so I think that's the direction they're going to be going in, and that's all well and great, right? We have this Vikendi Easter egg for sure, but what about the other maps? The hosts were praising the Vikendi loot cave for being one of the coolest Easter eggs they'd ever seen, but they were also curious about, you know, Easter eggs on previous maps, or even more in Vikendi, and what Brian alluded to was that Easter eggs remain still on every single map in PUBG undiscovered. Now, when I heard this, I took this as kind of a challenge, right? My inner zombies player reawoken and wanted to discover all of the other Easter eggs that the map had to offer. Now, Brian chooses his words pretty carefully when answering this question, so I'm going to let you listen to exactly what he says, and then we'll go ahead and break that down.
And things like that in this game, there's definitely certain ways that are the best way to tell it, and through the environment and letting people discover stuff is a really good one. So, I don't know. Yeah, I think you'll see more of that for sure.
Are there things on every map? What about that question?
I don't think I should even answer that.
Oh, man.
I'm waiting for like some sort of interact button that I can press.
Man, you guys have seen Dave Curd, right? Can you imagine that guy getting on a plane and coming to New York and laying the smackdown because I gave away his secrets? He would not be happy.
Now, as soon as I heard this clip, I knew exactly what this meant. This is one of those classic wink winks that no, you have definitely not found everything that there is to discover on all of the maps. And again, like I said, I really took this as a challenge to discover what the maps had to offer. And he also alluded that maybe old Erangel might be a place that we want to search before it ends up getting replaced. He also did mention that yes, it will be replaced for like the general public, but esports will still be playing on the old version of Erangel, at least for the time being. So if you want to play it on that, then I suppose you could play it in those rules. But regardless, I took to some of the maps to discover what I could find on the maps. Now, I thought back to a really old Easter egg that was found on Miramar, and some of you guys might be aware of this if you watched some of my previous videos. Like last year, I talked about this. An image was posted on Reddit literally like over a year ago at this point, and it was some numbers inside of one of the small shacks inside of Miramar, which when you translate this into using just a basic letter to numbers chart, it reads a secret. Now, at the time, you can't lie, this was pretty cool because this was the first instance of like a solvable Easter egg that PUBG had really ever seen as far as we were aware. We hadn't seen anything like this on Erangel, and we kind of just just left it at that, right? There was just a secret in the back of a thing, and it's like, seemed like this was just PUBG's attempt at kind of like a little Easter egg joke, I guess, and we didn't really think too much of it. But recently, I re-looked back into this Easter egg, and there's actually more to it than that. In fact, there's a lot more to Miramar in general than we gave it credit for. I took a really deep dive into this map to figure out exactly what's going on, and what I found is pretty insane. Now, if you've been up to date with PUBG Easter eggs, or at least you've been watching my channel for maybe a little over a year now, you may be familiar with the Easter egg in Miramar, where there is a certain building that is in the very most northern part of Miramar that hardly anybody's gonna ever go to at all, and it's this really strange contrasted building with the rest of the arid, dry land, right? You'll have this building that's surrounded by green, luscious trees that seem to be pretty well watered and healthy, and it just looks absolutely out of place for the rest of the environment. And so this caused a lot of suspicion, and people started to speculate that this had been a studio in which, you know, the games of Battlegrounds itself was being perpetuated either by somebody in this very studio, or just this was some sort of base of operations that could be used. And if you take a closer look outside this studio and also inside, it becomes pretty apparent that that's exactly what's going on here. But if that wasn't weird enough for you, apparently before the map came out, I didn't know this until recently, this area was apparently literally labeled on the map as production studio, and that absolutely blew my mind when I saw this, because this was an early version of the labeled Miramar map, not quite the like early alpha version of it where we see in the actual Miramar map on the table, but somewhere like in between that and the final product, this was labeled as production studio. And from here, things only start to get weirder. I did some more digging into Miramar, and I found some really interesting messages that were labeled all over buildings that can be found in various areas of the map. And we know from PUBG's trailer yesterday that Battlegrounds, or at least Erangel itself, is being ran by somebody and being perpetuated this game, and it seems like that's what's going on with Miramar. Now, do you remember the Dictator poster that we got in Erangel Remastered, where we got to see an actual image of who he is? Well, I found on Miramar that this island all the way at the bottom, where pretty much nobody goes to, if you go to this lone house on the top of the hill and go all the way in the back, you're going to see a statue of somebody who might look quite familiar. Now, he looks unbelievably suspiciously close to that Dictator, and whether that's him or not is up for debate, but that absolutely blew my mind when I saw it. I believe that this is the only place that you can find this statue of this person, this figure, whoever it is. I believe it to maybe be the Dictator, unless there is evidence otherwise that it's somebody else that we know. Could be a variety of people, to be honest, but what I also found that by this statue was a lighthouse with a very suspicious looking centerpiece when you get to the top. And this is not the only lighthouse like this that exists. There are two more on the map. There's a red one and an orange one that I found that all have this odd centerpiece as well. And as far as my theory for what these lighthouses could be used for or what they should signify, I don't really know at this point. That symbol I hadn't really seen anywhere else, and especially not in Erangel Remastered, which I tried to cross-reference and find in the map, but I couldn't find anything really exactly like it. None of the lighthouses have been interactable as far as I can tell, and there's still quite a bit of loose ends in Miramar. Like, for example, these rocks that are just found in a random part of the map seem to be almost alien, or they have like kind of like native markings on them. It's really difficult to work out exactly what these are. They just look like they were dropped in like from space, like they don't belong in this game or something. You can see that they're completely contrasted with the rest of the aesthetic of the map, and so these are clearly something suspicious as well. And all of these made me open my eyes and realize about how many things are still undiscovered in Miramar. And so now let's loop back to what we said at the beginning of this, where we were talking about the Easter egg that said a secret, right? I figured that that was not all there was to discover. And after a bit of digging and looking around, I went to some areas on the map of Miramar that I had never seen before, like the far eastern side, which after all of my playtime in PUBG, there were some areas that I'd still had never laid my eyes upon, which is pretty crazy. But I ended up finding in this very lonesome shack on the far eastern side, these numbers that are different on the back of this wall. They were different from the ones that we saw earlier, and it's a new code. And when you apply the same letter to numbers method that we used to solve the first one that reads a secret, we get the same kind of concept here, just with one word. We get NOT, which is just, of course, not. What I think is going on is there's a couple more of these shacks that we have not yet discovered that all have their own messages in it, and maybe it's a bunch of words that we can put together into a single phrase. But the problem is that these things are so hard to find and spread apart that even I, just looking around in free cam, had a hard time finding these. But this seems to be the direction in discovering the new Easter egg. So if you guys want to get hunting this particular one, then jump into Miramar and jump into these little shacks and see what you can find. If you end up finding any new ones, and then tweet them at me so I can see them, please. Now, the video doesn't end here, even though that this is all getting crazy and weird enough. Like, we're still not done. When it comes to Miramar, all of this lore and all of these links are slowly coming together for the full story of PUBG, and kind of it's all intertwining now, but we need to discover what this last message is within these shacks. So now I've showed you that we have a good idea of what to look for on Miramar and what to keep an eye out, but what about Sanhok? Sanhok. Now, admittedly, Sanhok's Easter eggs have been a little bit harder to discover. Maybe they're just really well hidden, or there might just be a little bit less to find in Sanhok, but that doesn't mean there's none to discover. And sure, a lot of Sanhok's Easter eggs just have to do with the lore of the map, which I think what I'm going to do is, instead of making individual videos for the story of every map, I think I've got them pretty much all figured out for the most part. I'm going to make one big video detailing the entire story of PUBG that includes all 4 of these maps so far. So, trying to differentiate the lore Easter eggs from the actual, like, kind of more suspicious Easter eggs in Sanhok was a bit hard to do, but what we have found in this map is that there's these very strange gold chests that are littered in a couple of different places. Now, many players have noted these gold chests, but they'll also notice that you cannot interact with them in any way. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're pretty much just static and they don't do anything. And generally, a good way to tell if something is, like, active as an Easter egg or interactable to some degree is by checking the code. That's pretty much how the Vikendi loot cave was discovered. Basically, there are triggers in the code that will identify that there's an Easter egg in some portion of the map doing some certain thing. But with these golden loot chests, there doesn't appear to be any kind of trigger associated with them, at least right now anyways. This could be patched in later, or it could be something that was a cut Easter egg potentially. Maybe something bigger is still planned with these treasure chests. We absolutely have no idea, but the thing about Sanhok is I basically looked everywhere in this map, and aside from Miramar having all of these loose ends, I really wasn't able to find too much apart from like lore Easter eggs that could be attributed to Sanhok. And so apparently, if there's still stuff to find on every map, maybe we aren't looking hard enough, or maybe I haven't stumbled across it yet, but I think I have a good understanding on what the story is, at least for this map, so that's a start. But aside from these treasure chests and a couple of other weird things, I'm not really sure where to go with Easter eggs on this map. So if you guys want to start hunting on this, then I would get on it now. Or if you have any Easter egg suggestions, let me know down below in the comment section. And then on the podcast, when they asked about if we should be looking for Easter eggs on Old Erangel, Brian was about to answer that, and then he got cut off and they never really got back onto the subject. But from what it seems like, he was going to say that there are still things that we haven't found on Old Erangel. Whether it is an actual major Easter egg or just a couple of minor Easter eggs, he didn't specify, and I guess that's for us to find out. But since Old Erangel is going away except for the esports mode, then now is the time to start hunting if we want to find what's left in this map. And with Vikendi, there's still a ton of Easter eggs to be discovered in that map as well. It's very lore heavy, so there's going to be a follow-up video to this one as soon as the Miramar thing gets solved, and a couple of other ones. I'm going to make a list compiling all the updated Easter eggs, and along with new ones that we discover in Erangel Remastered and potentially Vikendi as well. So we still have a lot to talk about, but that's going to be for a future video. But this is kind of a call to the community, so you know what to get hunting for if you want to discover these Easter eggs. And if you do end up finding anything, then please follow me on Twitter. Link will be down below in the description, and show me what you find, as you may be featured in an upcoming video. But anyways, guys, I really hope you did enjoy this video, and I greatly appreciate your time. I really want to drive that home to you guys, that the amount of time you spend watching my videos, leaving likes, comments, helping me out, supporting the channel really has absolutely changed my life, and I hope it's something that you guys enjoy doing. It's so cool to have a community of you guys that's just as passionate about the game as I am. It's really awesome to see, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. So anyways, guys, definitely let me know what you think about this video down below in the comment section. But really, once again, thank you all so much for watching this video. If you guys are a supporter over here and you haven't already subscribed to my second channel, the link to that will be down below in the description, where I'm uploading more content. So I highly recommend you go check that out as well if you like what we do here. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching this video today. Hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next stream or the next video. Take it easy, and peace out.